Welcome to Attivo Networks podcast series. I'm Todd Helfrich, VP of Federal with Attivo Networks, and I'm here today with Tony Cole, the CTO of Attivo, to discuss federal requirements for cyber deception. Tony, NIST has recommended deception for a number of years via Special Pub 3, Revision 4. However, they've clearly started to focus more on deception with a new version 5 of 853, along with 80160 version 2, and 800-171B. What changed to move them in that direction to include cyber deception in so many requirements?
Well, thanks, Todd. It's always fun talking to you. I think that there's been a number of different things that have changed over the last couple of years with deception. Gartner has now started to recommend deception and really started to focus on it, along with doing analysis of the top 6 vendors, talking about it publicly at many of their risk summits that they've held around the globe. And then we've started to see MITRE do a significant focus on it as well in the last couple of years, where they've focused on pushing defense industrial base as well as the U.S. Department of Defense to implement deception, and now have started to do their own presentations on how to potentially use their MITRE attack matrix in incorporation for deception campaign planning. So there's a lot of different things that have really generated interest from NIST. And I think the most valuable piece is their conversations with customers. It shows that deception really makes a significant difference in defending an enterprise and detecting adversaries early in east-west movement across their enterprise. So let me ask you a question around that, Todd. What are you seeing in the federal space for requirements around cyber deception?
So I think it's really a cool time for us, Tony. From a customer perspective, they're seeing the same thing you and I are, which is the increased requirements. We're seeing, increased activity from industry analysts like Gartner, like IDG, that are focusing their research around deception and identifying the value and the ROI. Having the NIST requirements definitely helps. But what we're seeing additionally from our customers is these unique use cases that cyber deception can help provide them. There's a number of customers that we have in one industry segment, in transportation specifically. Customer has difficulty identifying where their IT systems are in comparison to where their ICS, SCADA, and IoT systems are. They initially engaged us so that they could work to develop a program to secure those industrial control systems. But ultimately, there was a secondary benefit that was gleaned from our technology, that we were able to inventory their assets, identify where their critical infrastructure was within the enterprise. And we did this in almost a passive manner, which, if you think about it, in these high value asset environments, it's very difficult for organizations to jump in and bring active technologies in play to start scanning, trying to identify or enumerate assets. And also, when you talk about industrial control systems, it's a very often unique set of protocols. And there's very few technologies that are out there that can really help in these particular environments. So this one customer use case that I'm speaking to in the transportation sector, the value and the initial dialogue with us and the initial sale was focused on cyber deception. But it was those secondary and tertiary benefits of our technology that really helped them continue to deploy our technology to identify additional areas where they needed to secure the enterprise. So Tony, MITRE's recent white paper, How Cyber Deception Enables Better Resilience, showcases the value of deception for the defense industrial base and the Department of Defense, Do you think this is related to new additional focus that NIST has placed on cyber deception as it enables east to west detection and slows adversaries down? Securing the supply chain has definitely been an increased focus, if you will, for the Department of Defense.
Yeah, I think good question, Todd, and great points on the supply chain as well. Supply chain assurance, especially through this period that we're going through right now, spring of 2020, that's been a greater focus, across the U.S. government. As far as deception picking up, across the board in MITRE's recent white paper, I think it's because there's a few more customers that are very large scale that are talking about deception frequently. The Gartner piece I touched on earlier, I think is critically important. but it's also MITRE that's deeply ingrained in the Department of Defense. So that's looking at deception more, talking about deception more. They've got deception engineers on staff, and their continuous efforts now around using the MITRE attack matrix to build deception campaign planning. So it's a component that shows DoD something they already know in the physical world. So, and I think that's an important point because the U.S. Department of Defense and their counterparts around the globe, their allies, definitely know how to use deception in the physical world. And MITRE is showing them from an adversary perspective how to potentially take that same type of information in the cyber realm and apply it to your campaign planning in the cyber realm to protect those digital assets that they need to defend. So, and quite frankly, some of their battles that they'll have to do in the future, deception is going to be a major component of it if they're going to fight and win in this space. So I think that there's a lot of pieces that have started to drive this, NIST certainly being one part of it, MITRE being another, Gartner being another, and customers talking about the value it provides as well.
Yeah, I would
So
agree with
Todd,
you. I mean, one thing that I think the partnerships that we at Attivo have built over the years with MITRE, with Johns Hopkins, those FFRDCs that have performed a lot of research in the space have really helped to focus the various areas like the MITRE attack framework where cyber deception can add value. And I think that some of the value that organizations like NIST and MITRE have provided additionally is in the area of authenticity. And in speaking with our friends over at MITRE, they use the terminology pocket litter. In speaking or reviewing NIST frameworks, they speak to honeypot, honey client, honey docs. There's a lot of nomenclature that our industry has used for the last 20 years. You and I have been in industry for a while. So honeypot, back in 1997 was a thing. Today the industry is definitely matured, but I think authenticity is a true requirement because when an adversary is in an enterprise, they're quickly astute to determine whether or not something's off. So without authenticity inside of an environment, an adversary will really quickly alert themselves to the fact that they're probably in an area where they're being tested or evaluated, and they'll back out. So authenticity for me, authenticity for our customers, and there's a number of ways that we can implement authenticity. But I think it's critically important to any deception program because if the adversary does break into the environment, and when they do, because there's a lot of proof that the adversary is breaking into our environments and performing breaches on a regular basis, we want to make sure that we are able to engage them with the deceptions and that pocket litter that MITRE uses as terminology, and do so in such a way that we can quickly engage them, we can quickly alert the security operations team so that they can implement their orchestration processes and analysis processes, and really help them bolster their security operations. One thing in a recent customer use case, it's really cool getting feedback from our customers in the field when they're able to share with us how our technology has helped their organizations. Had a recent customer as recent as a few weeks ago who shared with us that one of their endpoint agents, the security agents, did not detect a interaction. It was actually our technology that was able to see that there was a reverse shell that was being put into place because that adversary was engaged with our decoy, our authentic decoy credentials. And that alerted the security operations team. It wasn't the other perimeter security technologies in place or the endpoint technologies that were in place. So deception is really starting to show its value, not only in industry, but also across the customer base. And as you're well aware, having the federal footprint and experience, we've got a number of customers that are well engaged and getting great success with the products.
well, I appreciate that, Todd. I certainly concur with you. IDC says over $133 billion going to be spent by 2022. And we know that much of that preventative technology is failing because the breaches take place regularly. So thanks for chatting with me today. Greatly appreciate it. It's fun.
Tony, thanks so much. You're right around the corner, so sometimes we'll have to do this face to face, but greatly appreciate the opportunity to sync up with you on this podcast series and look forward to the next one, Tony.
Thank you.